You agreed to this plan? Dalen asked Lucia. Yes. Lucia observed Dalen's expression closely, afraid that he would be displeased. After all, he was Jeff's friend. That is a good thing. You should have told me earlier, Dalen said calmly. Aren't you angry? Lucia asked. Angry? You seem to have forgotten what I told you, Dalen said as he stared at her. Lucia backed up a few steps and asked, What do you mean? Dalen ignored her question, instead asking, Then tell me, how are you going to lure Jeff out? Tell me about it. It was hard to tell if Dalen was angry or not. That, I haven't thought about it yet. Actually, Lucia had already made up her mind. Jeff loved teasing her all day long. She would just play along. It wasn't real anyway. However, Lucia knew very well that in Dalen's eyes, even if it wasn't real, he would get upset. She wasn't that stupid, and she didn't want to aggravate him. Dalen glanced at her coldly, but Lucia just pursed her lips, blinking innocently. Dalen retracted his oppressive gaze and said, I'll drug him. Lucia was surprised. Why? Dalen looked at her. He'll know what you're up to. He'll see right through it, and I've been waiting for this day for a long time. Dalen still had a grudge even after pummeling Jeff. For him, the physical pain of torturing someone was not enough. Indeed, the more powerful a person was, the more perverted their style of handling affairs. And when were you planning on doing this? Lucia asked. Lucia was stunned, but Dalen couldn't wait any longer. After Lucia returned to the company, she hid in the hallway and secretly called Maddie. Would there be a problem if we move our plan forward to tonight? She whispered into the phone. No problem. I'm ready anytime, anywhere, Maddie replied. Lucia rubbed her nose. My husband said he can be the one to drug Jeff. He said that Jeff would find out if we drugged him. This can't be better. Maddie seemed very happy. Can I ask a question? Lucia asked. Go ahead. Why do you want revenge on Jeff? Lucia could not believe that a stranger would do this for no reason at all. I just want to help you take revenge, Maddie said innocently. Do you think I believe that? Lucia asked, getting frustrated. Does it really matter? If I don't tell you, will you pull out of the plan? Of course not. I was just curious. Lucia knew that Maddie did not want to say anything, so she stopped asking. That night in the luxurious bar, Jeff was enjoying himself drinking with his friends. Then a bodyguard walked over and whispered into his ear. Jeff's mouth twitched. He's here to cause trouble again? Seems not. He went to the private room with his wife, the bodyguard reported. Jeff was stunned. He actually brought his wife to this kind of place? A cold smile crept onto his lips. How interesting. Jeff had the bodyguard lead him to Dalen and Lucia's private room and pushed open the door. Jeff's tall body leaned against the doorframe as he watched the pair inside. Dalen, do you have to bring her to this sort of place? You might as well tie her to your waist, Jeff drawled. Dalen replied without batting an eyelid. That's exactly what I was thinking. Jeff walked in and sat on the sofa opposite them. He swept his cold eyes up and down each of them, his gaze lingering on Lucia. Why do I have a strange feeling? He asked suspiciously. Lucia kept her gaze down as she continued to eat. Dalen remained calm. Then go back to where you came from. We don't want you here. Jeff just smiled and leaned forward, pouring himself a glass of wine. He was prepared to stay. Just when he was about to take a sip, Lucia became excited. Jeff noticed the change in Lucia's expression. However, just when he was about to hesitate, Dalen said, "That one bottle of wine is more than what most people make in a lifetime." Lucia spat out the fruit in her mouth. Jeff smirked. "You must have been scammed." "The wine in your glass is worth that price," Dalen said. "Then I'll keep it." As Jeff said this, he tilted his neck slightly and finished the wine in one gulp. Not a single drop was left, just as Dalen expected. Lucia had almost ruined the entire plan. Luckily, Dalen had gotten things back on track. Sure enough, if she and Maddie had done this alone, they would definitely have been exposed. "Your man is right next to you. Isn't it bad for you to be staring at me like that?" Jeff leaned back in his chair and looked straight at Lucia. Lucia felt Dalen's cold gaze land on her and quickly lowered her eyes. She didn't have any kind of interest. She just wanted to see how Jeff would react to the drug. Dalen retracted his gaze from Lucia's body and looked at Jeff. "How did you like the wine?" "Well, for that much money, it certainly has its advantages." As Jeff said this, his face slightly changed. He felt that something was wrong with his body. He looked at Dalen, who had an unreadable look in his eyes, and said with a trace of admiration, "You drugged me again?" Lucia was surprised. Why did Jeff say again? The corner of Dalen's mouth slightly rose as he said in an arrogant manner, "Don't worry, this time will be much more unpleasant." No matter how strong Jeff was, Dalen's drug would be stronger. Just as Jeff was about to stand up, his vision went black and he fell onto the sofa. Jeff tried desperately to clear his head. His voice was a bit weak, but he managed to whisper, "Dalen, you will regret this." Dalen loomed over him. "Let's wait and see." Lucia followed Dalen out of the bar. Before getting in the car, Lucia could not help but ask, "Dalen, when did you drug Jeff before, and why?" "I don't like him," Dalen said simply. Lucia was at a loss for words. Jeff's bodyguards dragged him to the presidential suite at the bar's hotel. His men weren't suspicious. They simply thought he had drunk too much. Inside the room, Maddie had been waiting for a long time. After Jeff was placed on the bed in the room, Maddie walked out of the bathroom. She had just finished a shower and was wrapped in a white towel. The top of her head still had her tangled hairstyle, and her face was still pale and blemished, but the skin below her neck was as smooth and beautiful as silk. It didn't match her face at all. Jeff glared at Maddie, and he seemed to be trying to find a shadow of recognition in her. You really don't know who I am, do you? You actually treated me like this." Maddie sobbed and struggled to get out of Jeff's grip. She looked desperate. I'm going to tell everyone." "Shut up!" Jeff roared. Maddie was so scared that she trembled and didn't dare to howl. She looked at Jeff with tears in her eyes. Jeff got off the bed with an annoyed expression. He picked up the shirt on the floor and put it on. Maddie looked at his broad back, pursed her lips, raised her eyebrows, and obediently stood there without moving. After putting on his clothes, Jeff turned around and looked at her sinisterly. "I'll ask you again. What happened last night?" I don't know what happened. I played in the bar and I drank too much. In a daze, I felt someone drag me around and someone said, 'I'll be here when I wake up.'" Jeff was extremely angry because he had no memory of what happened last night. Jeff looked at Maddie with a cold gaze, and after a few strides, he stopped in front of Maddie. Maddie clutched the blanket covering her and said excitedly, "I will tell everyone. You insulted me and took advantage of me." Jeff really wanted to strangle Maddie, but instead he pointed at the door and said, "Leave now." "But," Maddie began. Jeff interrupted her. Just one more word and I'll cut off your tongue. Maddie bit her lips as if thinking everything over. Then she picked up her clothes and ran to the bathroom. After Maddie entered the bathroom, she was filled with so much adrenaline that she almost collapsed on the floor. She didn't know if Jeff really believed her or not. She hoped she had done enough. However, no matter what, she wouldn't regret her decision. Maddie came out of the bathroom in her dirty clothes. Jeff's expression turned even colder and became even more frightening. Maddie's eyes flickered as she looked at Jeff. Seeing that he didn't have any intention to speak, she took the initiative to begin. Don't you have anything to say to me? How about, don't you want to give me some money? Jeff didn't respond. I'm definitely not a blackmailer. I don't want much. Maybe 100? Jeff looked at her sinisterly. His sharp gaze made Maddie wave her hand and say, Forget it. Just pretend this never happened. With that, she walked out of the suite in low spirits. Jeff's expression did not improve. His black eyes were sinister. He then opened the door and instructed the bodyguard outside. Follow her. Yes, sir. Jeff walked out of the suite, left the hotel, and got into the car. He sat in the back seat with a deep look in his eyes. Stacy Smith was an orphan who had been raised by Jeff Holmes's extended family and used to be called Monica Holmes. But when she grew up, she eloped with another man and became pregnant. At that time, the head of the Holmes family, who was also Jeff's father, was extremely furious. He had directly chased her out of the family and forbade her from using the name Monica Holmes. 5 years later, the man she had married cheated on her. Stacy had nowhere else to go, so she brought her child back to the Holmes' household. But Mr. Holmes still held a grudge and turned her away. Jeff had only been a child at the time, but he caught a glimpse of the woman and her daughter through the window. Although many years had passed, he had never forgotten that delicate face, fair as a porcelain doll's. But what happened to her face now? She could only be described as terrifying. Maddie wandered outside, so hungry that her stomach rumbled. She didn't have much money on her, and she was very frugal. Once it was dark, Maddie bought a big bag of buns and went to one of the big tent cities where many homeless beggars slept. The floor was covered with quilts that had been picked up from the trash bin. Every beggar had their own designated spot. Maddie headed toward her friend Agatha, who was leaning against the wall, her entire body covered in filth. She was picking at her leg with one hand, looking very bored. Maddie walked over and put the bun in Agatha's hand. She then sat on the blanket beside her. Hey, whose blanket is this? Has my usual one been snatched away? Maddie asked. No, I went to pick up a new one for you. It was cold last night, so one quilt wasn't enough. That's great. Thank you so much. Maddie patted her shoulder. Don't get too excited. I was already looking for clothes and just happened to see a blanket for you. Agatha took a big bite of the bun and nodded her head. This bun tastes good. Right? Eat more. Maddie also picked up a steamed bun and started nibbling on it. Did you go to beg? How much did you get? Agatha asked. Not even a dime. Maddie chewed on the steamed bun and said unhappily, And he was such a rich customer, too. Let me tell you, you have no experience in this area. The more rich he looks, the less he will give you. The next time you beg, find a man and a woman who are walking along the road, or an elder who has a child with him. This is the easiest way to beg, because parents want to educate their children to be loving and men want to impress their women, Agatha said. That makes a lot of sense. But Maddie wasn't really listening. She was thinking about how much she hated Jeff. Luckily, she found a way to make sure nothing really happened between them. She just had to make it look convincing. Maddie sighed. When night fell, even beggars had to sleep. At night, Maddie's bed was next to Agatha, and beside them was a male beggar. Maddie curled up in the blanket and quickly fell asleep. The other beggars also began to fall asleep. The male beggar who was lying beside Maddie was still awake, though. He stretched out his hand and quietly touched Maddie's blanket. Maddie was sleeping sound, completely unaware of the hand that was approaching. Before he could reach Maddie, a shadow fell over him, and he felt a chill run up his spine. He slowly raised his head, and when he met the pair of sinister and terrifying black eyes, he was so frightened that he didn't dare to move. Jeff lifted his foot and stomped on the male beggar's outstretched arm. Ah! The sound of breaking bones and his screams could be heard in the air. This sound woke all the beggars from their slumber, including Maddie. What happened? What? Maddie stopped when she saw Jeff. His tall figure was extremely frightening, and he had a vicious expression on his face. He continued to crush the male beggar's arm, and the men continued to scream miserably. It echoed through the camp. What was going on? Why did Jeff treat a beggar like this? When the beggar was no longer able to cry out in pain, Jeff raised his foot and ordered his men, "Throw this scum in the river." Below the bridge was the river. If he were to be thrown in, he would definitely die. Maddie couldn't believe that Jeff would do this. People like them were nothing in Jeff's eyes. But it was different for Maddie. She immediately stopped him. Wait, why would you do that? Did he do something wrong? This is my order. Jeff grabbed Maddie and dragged her out of the camp. Hey, what are you doing? Maddie tried to struggle free, but the strength of Jeff's hands was too strong. The more she struggled, the more painful it became. What are you doing? She screamed as she was thrown into the car. She sat in the car and looked at Jeff, who got in behind her. After the door closed, the car drove on. Maddie was slightly stupefied by her current situation. Didn't he tell me to get out of his sight? What was going on? Call your mother now. Jeff threw his phone over. Maddie looked at the black phone in her hand and asked, puzzled, Why? Do you need me to say it a second time? Jeff said coldly. Maddie nervously dialed a number and the phone started ringing. When her mom answered the call, she asked, Who is it? Mom, it's me. Maddie? Stacy asked anxiously. Where are you? How could you just run out without saying a word? What do you mean by not saying a word? Didn't I tell you I was leaving? Maddie argued. But I did not agree. Do you know how dangerous it is for you to run away like this in this city? Stacy was anxious and angry. Maddie bit her lips and glanced at Jeff. After a slight hesitation, she said, I'm fine. Mom, I met someone who wants to talk to you. What? Who is it? Stacy asked, confused. Maddie handed the phone directly to Jeff. Jeff glanced at her coldly, took the phone and put it to his ear. This is Jeff. Stacy gasped. What? You didn't know she ran away? He asked, cutting Stacy off. His voice was cold and there was no trace of family affection. Stacy was stunned when she heard Jeff's voice. She hesitated because she had not contacted him for more than 10 years. Jeff, is that really you? Sorry to trouble you. She didn't tell me anything, Stacy said regretfully. Sorry to cause you trouble. How long has she been out? Jeff asked Stacy as he stared at Maddie. Maddie turned her face away, pretending to be innocent. Almost a month, Stacy whispered. Take her back now, Jeff said in a tone that could not be defied. Even if I bring her back, she will just run out again. This is not the first time she has run away. I don't know what to do. Stacy's voice was choked with sobs. She's in a rebellious phase and won't listen to anyone. Jeff, can I ask you something? Can she stay with you for a while? I know that I'm no longer a member of the Holmes family, but I only have this one daughter. I'll pick her up when she's feeling more obedient. Can you? I have no experience with children. Jeff's voice could freeze the air into ice. I know, it's hard. Actually, before she ran away from home, Maddie told me that she wanted to find her other relatives. I would always tell her about the family, and she always wanted to meet you guys. I think she'll listen to you, Stacy said. Jeff was so angry that he directly hung up the phone. He stared at the restless Maddie. Maddie did not know what Stacy said to Jeff, but it had clearly made Jeff very upset. Jeff leaned forward to the driver and ordered, "To the salon." Maddie was shocked. Why are you going to the salon? Do you need a haircut? Jeff remained silent with a cold face. Maddie thought, it wouldn't be for me, right? After they arrived, Jeff got out of the car and ushered Maddie out at the same time. Maddie raised her head and saw a high-end salon in front of her. She was stupefied. The next second, Jeff dragged her inside. Hello, Mr. Holmes, please come in. A man with a perky demeanor came over. His hair was dyed gold. Jeff handed Maddie over to the hairdresser. Fix her. The hairdresser was shocked by Maddie's appearance. He had never seen such a nasty outfit. Don't worry, she'll look like a goddess once I'm done with her, the hairdresser said confidently. I don't want to. Maddie immediately retreated a few steps in fright. Nobody will touch my hair. I like it like this. None of you are allowed to touch me. Jeff's face turned dark. You need to look more acceptable. Why should I cut my hair? As long as I like it. Maddie was adamant on not giving in. Even if Jeff's face was so angry that it could scare a person to death, she still had to protect her image. Jeff stepped forward and pulled Maddie in close to him, looking at her sinisterly. Aren't you going to follow me? You have to be a little more obedient. Why should I follow you? And how do you know my mother? What did you guys speak about on the phone? Maddie asked anxiously. She wanted to struggle free from Jeff's grip, but her wrist was in pain and she couldn't. Jeff stared at Maddie's rebellious expression and even the tears in her eyes. It's just hair. Why did she have to react like that? Why don't you want to fix your hair? You think it looks good like this? Jeff asked rudely. I like it, Maddie insisted. Jeff was about to continue, but he noticed that Maddie's hands were shaking. In Maddie's eyes, there was a legitimate fear. At first, Jeff thought it was because she was afraid of him, but it was obviously more than that. I'm begging you, please don't change my appearance, okay? I can't promise you anything else. Jeff, please. Tears fell down Maddie's face as she spoke. Jeff let go of her hands. Fine. I won't force you today, but if you want to stay by my side, you will have to work on your appearance. This was the first time Jeff had ever compromised with anyone. Maddie stood there motionless, like a frightened bird. What are you still standing here for? Get in the car, Jeff said harshly. Maddie came back to her senses and ran out of the salon and back into the car. Jeff got in the car and looked at Maddie coldly. I don't have the patience to argue with you. You had better listen to me or I'll send you back immediately. Jeff warned her. Maddie pursed her lips and said, "Jeff, if it's about anything other than changing my appearance, I will listen to you." "Stay by my side. Listen to me. I'll make you regret it." Jeff smiled coldly. The car stopped in front of a European-style mansion. After Maddie got out of the car, she was stunned for a moment. "Do you live here?" "Will I live here?" Maddie asked. After all, it was hard to believe that the people actually lived like this after spending weeks in the homeless camp. "It's either here or the camp," Jeff said coldly. A smile appeared on Maddie's face, and she said with a hint of pride, "I live here." When Jeff saw her smile, his face turned cold. Maddie's black teeth were sign enough that she wasn't particularly keen at hygiene. "You knew who I was from the beginning, didn't you?" Jeff asked coldly. Maddie grinned. It was obvious this was her plan all along. If she dared to scheme against him, she would have to be made aware of the consequences. "Is this my room?" Maddie walked around a large room off the entryway and asked Jeff. He sat down on the sofa with his long legs crossed and stared coldly at her. "Sit down. I have something to say." Maddie didn't know what Jeff was going to say, but she still sat down obediently. He sat back on the sofa and tried to get comfortable. At first, she tried folding her legs, but a glare from Jeff made her choose a proper posture. "Jeff, if you have something to say, just say it. I will listen," Maddie said after a long silence. Jeff's face darkened as he said, "Are you going to stop going to school?" Maddie said nothing, her eyes glittering. "Is this what you were like in school?" Jeff asked sternly. "Are you talking about my outfit?" "That's right, I dress like this for school. I'm already used to it. So don't even get started with that again." Maddie spoke quite righteously. If Jeff didn't have patience, Maddie would have already been thrown out of the window. With a serious face, Jeff continued, "I'll only take you in for a short time. Once that's done, you will obediently return to your mother." "Why? Can't you let me stay here?" Maddie whined. "No." "How can you be so heartless? We were once family." Maddie pouted. Jeff looked at her coldly. "Let me tell you first, I don't deal with immature people. Before I run out of patience, you should think about when you will plan to leave." With that, Jeff stood up and walked out. Maddie's body went limp as she leaned against the sofa and raised her head to look at the ceiling. She wouldn't be driven away by Jeff too soon, right? Then again, Jeff wasn't exactly a good person. When she told her mom that she wanted to go to the Holmes family, her mother had disagreed. But Maddie had already decided that she wouldn't go back. Lucia was sipping from a bottle of milk that she had bought at the supermarket as she walked towards the elevator. She had also bought Cole's favorite snacks. Of course, Cole hadn't forgiven her yet, so she was obviously trying to get on his good side. This was the first time she'd gotten into this long of a conflict with Cole, and it was depressing. Lucia did not know that she was approaching a dangerous place, her office. Inside, Jeff was sitting on the sofa and waiting quietly for her. The atmosphere in the air was dangerous. Cole stood in the office motionlessly. He still didn't know why Jeff would come to Lucia's office. Was he looking for Lucia? Then why was he acting so strange? He didn't seem to be there with good intentions. Cole was sure that Lucia was out buying food. If she didn't go out in the afternoon to buy food, she would complain the rest of the day. If Lucia left around the same time that Jeff came, wouldn't they have bumped into each other? Cole shook his head. Forget it. Dalen and Lucia are already married. Lucia better not get involved with Jeff. Cole wanted to sneak out to warn Lucia that Jeff was there. However, just as he moved his feet, "Where are you off to?" Jeff asked, without turning to look at Cole. "I was going to get you a glass of water," Cole stammered. "You'd better stay here," Jeff said coldly. Cole stood frozen, afraid to move. This intimidating quality of Jeff's was the reason that, despite numerous red flags coming his way, Cole wasn't able to get him out of his mind. Lucia pushed open the office door, still sipping at her milk. When she saw Jeff sitting on the sofa in the office, she choked. Lucia looked at Jeff with a flushed face, unable to utter a word. "You're back?" Jeff asked coldly. Lucia turned around and was about to run out. "If you dare to run, you'll regret it," Jeff threatened. Lucia's hand stiffened on the door handle. The meaning of his words was clear to her. If she ran, Jeff was going to stab Cole. Lucia turned around and glared at Jeff in annoyance. Why was he so difficult? It reminded her of Dalen. When she had been forced to get married, Dalen had his men point guns at Cole's head. "Did you think I would let you run away?" Jeff sneered. Lucia turned around and looked at Jeff. With her back pressed against the door, she asked, "What are you trying to do?" "Why do you think I came to find you?" Jeff's black eyes turned venomous. Of course, Lucia knew what it was about. She confidently said, "You can't blame Dalen and I, since you were the one who wanted to drink that wine. We didn't force you. Also, you still owe Dalen a ton." "Then I really have to thank you for the reminder," Jeff said, but it was obvious that he was not sincere. "There's no need to thank me. We aren't such petty people, like some people," Lucia muttered. Cole scoffed. "You're right. I'm just a petty person. Since you've set me up like this, you must know that I'm a germaphobe, right?" Jeff stood up and walked towards Lucia sinisterly. The threat in Jeff's words made Lucia's face turn red from anger. "Jeff, I'm Dalen's wife." "Even if you weren't his wife, would I have come looking for you?" Jeff sneered. Cole was puzzled when he heard this. What was the situation between these two? Why couldn't he understand what was happening? "Wait, Jeff," Cole immediately said. Jeff turned around and looked at Cole darkly. "You want me to stop?" "We are in the company. No matter what you do to Lucia, Dalen will definitely know, and he will not let it go," Cole said. "You're right, but I'd like to see how he reacts." Jeff raised his hand as he spoke. A white handkerchief covered Lucia's nose and mouth. Lucia was completely unprepared for Jeff to shove a handkerchief in her face. Jeff had been talking to Cole, so Lucia was caught by surprise. Then the scent of the handkerchief was absorbed into her lungs. Her eyes widened in shock. Jeff retracted his hand and threw the cloth into the trash can. Lucia was slightly stupefied, but she didn't faint. In fact, she didn't feel dizzy at all. "Lucia, are you all right?" Cole didn't know what Jeff was doing. I seem to be fine." Lucia laughed loudly. "Jeff, your knockout drug didn't work." "Is that so?" Jeff laughed coldly. "What I did was not a knockout drug." The smile on Lucia's face froze. "What was it?" "You'll know in time," Jeff said cryptically. Lucia was terrified. What could it have been? Jeff saw that she was lost in thought, so he grabbed her arm, opened the door, and pulled her out. "Ah! Jeff, what are you doing?" "Cole, Call Dalen and have him come and teach this lecherous man a lesson, Lucia called out as Jeff dragged her around. Cole was dumbfounded. How would he know Dalen's contact details? No, but he could call Mark, so he hurried towards his office. Jeff continued to pull on Lucia as they walked. No matter how much Lucia struggled, it was useless. She was too delicate to protect herself from Jeff. When Lucia saw everyone in the office gaping at the scene, she immediately pleaded for help. Hurry and help me! This man is a bandit. He wants to kidnap me. When the employees of the company realized that the one being pulled was their boss, they rushed forward to stop Jeff. However, before they could even take 2 steps forward, they were stopped by Jeff's bodyguards. Lucia looked at the employees in despair. No one could beat Jeff. She was dragged into the car as she staggered and fell onto a seat. Jeff got into the car behind her and they drove away. Lucia struggled against Jeff's grip. Jeff, where are you taking me? This is kidnapping. I'm going to call the police. I'll make sure you go to prison. Jeff looked at her coldly. Go ahead and try. They wouldn't dare act against me. Lucia was rendered speechless. Of course Jeff had the police in his pocket. He had almost as much money as Dalen. Even if she dared to call the police, would any of them dare to arrest Jeff? Mr. Holmes, there's a car chasing us from behind, reported the driver. No need to look. I know who it is. Jeff glanced at Lucia with a sneer. Lucia looked back and saw the familiar black armored vehicle. It was Dalen. Lucia immediately grew bold and warned Jeff, Dalen is here. Why aren't you letting me go? He will kill you. Suddenly, Lucia's entire body heated up, and her face flushed red. Why was this happening now? Lucia looked at Jeff, who had an unfathomable expression, and said in disbelief, What did you drug me with? This is to get back at Dalen, Jeff said. If you want to get back at Dalen, then punish him. Lucia was furious. Isn't it the same thing? Punishing you is far easier, too, with a much greater impact on Dalen, Jeff said calmly. Lucia's body began to feel uncomfortable. She became even more afraid. She was afraid that what had happened before would happen again. Previously it was Axel. Now it was Jeff. Lucia frowned. If you can't hold it in, I won't kick you out of the car. Jeff poured a glass of wine for himself in the car and drank it leisurely. Don't you have an obsession with cleanliness? Aren't you a germaphobe? I'm not a virgin anymore. Lucia wanted to slap Jeff to death, but the strength was draining from her. She couldn't even sit up straight in her seat. Dalen, come quickly. Lucia looked back and found Dalen's car still far behind. Her heart was filled with anxiety. You don't have to stand up for Dalen. Even if something happened between us, I don't think Dalen would blame you. Just like how he forgave you for what happened with Axel, Jeff said. Lucia shuddered. You know about that? Were you really with Axel? Jeff looked at her coldly. Yes, Lucia lied. A look of disgust and coldness flashed across Jeff's black eyes as he said, And Dalen actually wants you? That's right. Since he can't live without me, why don't you let me out of the car? I don't want any more trouble. Lucia's face was turning redder and redder, and she was getting more and more afraid. She spoke through gritted teeth. Since that's the case, I will definitely not let you go. Jeff had made up his mind to deal with Dalen, and he knew that Lucia was his only weakness. Mr. Holmes, the sky. There are helicopters. The driver checked the situation outside and was shocked as he spoke. At this moment, the sound of a helicopter came from above. producing a buzzing sound that deafened everyone. Jeff was shocked for a moment, then looked out of the window. One of the helicopters in the sky circled just above their roof, then lowered its rope and men in black suits slid down one by one. Jeff drank up all the wine in the cup and almost shattered it with his grip as his expression turned extremely ugly. The car was forced to a stop, and soon afterwards the door was opened by someone. Dalen's sharp gaze fell on Lucia, who was obviously drugged and paralyzed on the seat. He then shot a stern gaze at Jeff, who said without hesitation, "I guess I was wrong." "It's not that you were wrong, but you forgot that I have the final say in this city." Dalen pulled Lucia out of the car, picked her up, and turned around to go back to his own car. Lucia was in a muddled state, her eyes unfocused. "Lucia?" Dalen's black eyes were sharp and concerned. Lucia groaned softly and her eyelids drooped. Dalen held her body tightly and squeezed her shoulder. "Lucia, look at me." Lucia tried her best to focus her sight. The blurry figure in front of her had a familiar outline. "Dalen?" "Don't worry, you're safe. Don't worry, I'm here." After Dalen said this, he hugged Lucia and placed his head on her forehead. Lucia's forehead felt cool to the touch, but the remains of her mind made her resist, shaking her head. "What's wrong?" Dalen asked. Are you really Dalen? I'm afraid you're not. I almost let Dalen down. Even if I get drugged again, I don't want to touch anyone other than Dalen. Please tell me. Don't lie to me. If you aren't Dalen, don't touch me." Lucia muttered almost incoherently. Tears fell down her face one by one. It was obvious that she was using all of her rationality to resist the devastating effect of the medicine. After saying that, she immediately clenched her teeth tightly on her own hand to try and stay conscious. Dalen knew she was feeling terrible right now, yet her words made Dalen's heart soften. "Do you still remember the cake I made you?" Dalen asked with a hoarse voice. Lucia was stunned. The cake. Dalen's gift to her. At this moment, she couldn't completely think through the memory in her mind, but she knew that this was Dalen's promise. It was all ingrained in her mind, and no one else knew. "Dalen, it's really you. That's great." After Lucia finished her sentence, she was extremely happy. Dalen whispered something to Spencer, who was driving, but Lucia was too far gone to hear what he said. When Lucia woke up, she was in the big bed in the mansion's room, and she was paralyzed. She had a nagging feeling that she had lost everything she had today. When she regained consciousness, she felt someone behind her, hugging her tightly. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. When Lucia moved her body, she immediately felt an aching pain, as if her body had been crushed. "Ouch!" Lucia yelped. "How do you feel?" Dalen asked. "Like I was run over by a car," Lucia groaned. "That's normal," Dalen whispered comfortingly. Lucia was unable to say anything. Dalen massaged Lucia with both hands before letting go of her. "It's already afternoon. I'll go get some food for you." After Dalen finished speaking, he lifted up the blanket and got off the bed. Lucia pursed her lips and hid under the blanket as she looked at Dalen, who was standing beside the bed. Lucia noticed that Dalen was about to turn around, so she quickly covered her head with the blanket. Dalen stared at Lucia's cute reaction and curled the corner of his lips, not bothering her. Lucia must have been hungry since she didn't get dinner last night. After dressing, he turned around and went to get her some food. Lucia returned to the company 2 days later. Her spirit had been restored, but the aches and pains in her body had not yet healed. She thought that since she had a resting room in the office, she might as well take a rest here. After Lucia entered the office, she glanced at Cole's desk. She didn't say anything because she didn't want to bother him, so she just sat on the sofa. "Jeff didn't do anything to you, did he?" Cole asked. His sudden question startled Lucia. She raised her head and saw Cole looking at her. "Are you talking to me?" Lucia asked in confusion. "Is there anyone else in the office besides you?" Cole rolled his eyes. "Cole, does this mean we've made up?" Lucia asked with a smile. "I'm telling you, I've been really pissed off at Jeff." "You still haven't told me. Did Jeff do anything to you? He took you away, and then what?" Cole asked. "Then Dalen appeared. He easily saved me." Lucia was secretly pleased with herself and was unable to conceal the expression on her face. "For Dalen, saving you with a helicopter is indeed very easy," Cole teased. "You know about that?" Lucia asked, feeling embarrassed about the fuss Dalen made rescuing her. "It's all over the news," Cole replied. Lucia stayed silent for a moment, then said, "Cole, thank you for contacting Dalen. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unthinkable." She shivered just thinking about it. If Dalen hadn't shown up in time, who knew what terrible things would have happened? "It wasn't me. I went to look for Mark, but he didn't answer my call. I think that Dalen must have somehow already known you were kidnapped by Jeff." Cole looked suspiciously at Lucia. "Is Jeff interested in you or something? What did you do to make him so angry?" Lucia scratched her forehead and said guiltily, "It's nothing. He just bullied me and then Dalen drugged him. I guess Jeff couldn't hold back his anger and he came to kidnap me." Cole was completely shocked. "Cole, don't tell me you still like Jeff?" Lucia asked. Cole shrugged and said helplessly, "In the end, he and I are from two different worlds. I have also thought it through these past few days, but I can't force it. I'm giving up on him." Lucia went up to hug Cole happily and said, "It's really great that you could think it through. However, if anything happens in the future, you can't hide it from me. Tell me the truth." Cole looked at her with threatening eyes. "Do you think worse things will happen in the future?" Lucia asked in horror. Cole stared back at her seriously. Lucia leaned back on the sofa as Cole stared at her in pity. When Lucia thought of Jeff, her face was filled with fury. "I've never met such a horrific person before. Next time, I'll have to completely avoid him." "He really doesn't like you?" Cole asked in disbelief. "Not at all. He might just be crazy. You know that people like him don't understand how ordinary people function. Dalen is the only one who can deal with him." Then Lucia thought to herself, if Jeff was so angry about getting drugged, was Maddie's fate even worse? She hadn't thought about Maddie in a while, so she called her immediately. Maddie's voice sounded on the other end of the line. "Lucia?" "You're still alive?" Lucia asked. "Alive and well," Maddie responded. "Jeff didn't do anything to you, right?" Lucia thought that Jeff must have punished her somehow. "Nope. Not at all?" Lucia expressed her disbelief. Maddie paused for a moment and then said, "Actually, there's something I didn't tell you." "What?" "My mom was raised in the Holmes family. Logically speaking, Jeff is practically a relative of mine." "What?" Lucia's astonishment nearly caused her to fall over. "Then you—" "Calm down. We're not related by blood. It's okay. However, I still want to thank you for helping me," Maddie said indifferently. After Lucia hung up the phone, she was stunned. After all this time, Maddie wanted to scheme against her family? Why was that? And did she succeed? Lucia realized there were so many more questions she wanted to ask Maddie. Maddie must have been successful, right? Otherwise, why would Jeff be so angry? Lucia felt that the world was much more terrifying than she had imagined, so she decided not to think about it anymore. Over in Linda's villa, there was a chill in the air. Linda was sitting on the sofa, holding a teacup in her hands. She was lost in her thoughts, and her face was creased with concern. "Madam, the tea has turned cold. Shall I warm a cup for you?" her maid asked. Linda came back to her senses and placed the teacup on the table in front of her. She was worried. "I can't even drink tea right now," she said. "Madame, you should just take it easy on yourself. Don't worry about anything else." "Is my own son just anyone else?" Linda's expression was unpleasant. The maid was silent, not knowing what to say. First it was Axel. Now it's Dalen's friend. The matter has gotten out of hand. How could you be such an unscrupulous girl? Linda found it hard to believe. All those who used to marry into the Patrick family were noble ladies. However, all the girls nowadays are quite lively, so it is hard to avoid some differences. The maid was not in a position to act presumptuously, so she could only console her boss. Dalen's wife should be like Victoria, sensible, filial, gentle, and considerate. If I had known that Dalen would marry a girl like Lucia, I would never have agreed. The more Linda thought about it, the more her heart hurt. But your son loves the young mistress, and the lady is still young, so there are advantages, the maid said. Advantages? I think there are only shortcomings. Other things could be tolerated, but how could something like what happened with Axel be tolerated? No. I can't advise Dalen to divorce her, but I definitely won't let her give birth to a child, Linda said with a scheming look in her eyes. What does Madame mean? The maid asked. She shouldn't be able to get pregnant that soon. You should go and take care of this issue before it's too late. The maid tried to keep a calm face as she said, I understand. Dalen's black car was by the curb outside the company when Lucia came down. After Lucia got in the car, her body leaned against the seat and she yawned again. Dalen got in the car and was about to touch her, but Lucia immediately tensed up and shrank back against the door. She looked at Dalen vigilantly. With a dangerous tone, Dalen asked, It's been a few hours since we've seen each other. Are you rejecting me? No, I just think it's better to keep a distance. Isn't there a saying like that? Distance makes the heart grow fonder. Lucia laughed dryly. The laziness from before was gone. Dalen's voice was magnetic, and she had to be careful. Then I'll cook for you tonight, Dalen said. I don't want you to. Lucia was so shocked that she almost sprung up from the shock. Dalen's eyes darkened, and he pulled Lucia directly in front of him. Dalen's expression did not change, but he remained as firm as ever. Dalen looked down at her. Don't want what? Lucia looked up with her red face and pouted her lips. What did I say? I feel so tired of being married to you. I can't think straight. Do you think our deal is for nothing? Dalen asked. Can we discuss it? Lucia asked as she pulled on Dalen's suit jacket with her hands. No. There was no room for negotiation. Lucia's head drooped down. Dalen saw how she broke down and pulled her closer. His black eyes were deep. Are you not satisfied? I don't trust your words at all. Lucia looked up at him. Don't you see that I hardly even have the strength to go to work? I don't know where you got all your strength from. It's like you never run out of energy no matter what. Lucia, are you praising me? Dalen teased. He was in a good mood. I'm not praising you, Lucia argued. Dalen's handsome face leaned forward. Lucia suppressed her pounding heart. Does it hurt? Dalen whispered. Why are you asking if you know the answer? Lucia was annoyed. However, no matter how Lucia struggled, Dalen didn't let go. Lucia's watery eyes were glazed as she stared at the scenery outside the car window, which was constantly moving backwards. Her mind was a mess. In the past, when night fell, there had been a peculiar, quiet beauty. Now, however, there was only fear, because once night fell, Dalen would come to her. The room seemed to be filled with gas. As long as there was a spark in the room, it would ignite and explode, leaving her body in a mess. Therefore, Lucia had to try to avoid the flames. After dinner, Lucia pushed the empty bowl onto the table, glanced at Dalen, and said, I want to go out for a walk. Don't come. I'll be back later. With that, she ran out. Dalen leaned lazily on the back of the chair, took out a cigarette, and lit it. He held the cigarette between his strong fingers. After Lucia ran out, she took out her phone and dialed Mark's number. He answered, Mrs. Patrick. It's time for you to repay me. Lucia cut straight to the point. Mark didn't respond. Lucia continued, What, you want to go back on your word? Don't you have to thank me for helping Tracy get her career back? Lucia leaned on old debts. Indeed, Mrs. Patrick. Please speak. At 7 o'clock, you will call Dalen. You will say that you have to report this matter to the company and then lure him to the study room. Lucia thought for a moment before adding, It would be best if there was a video conference or something. What? Mark asked, confused. A video conference? Do you need me to teach you? Lucia yelled. Time was running out. Mark told her they had already had a video conference that day, but Lucia plowed ahead. I don't care what method you use, just lure Dalen to the study room. That will be difficult. Mr. Patrick is not an ordinary person, Mark said skeptically. You owe me. Lucia was furious. Got it. I'll do my best. Don't just try, do it. Lucia hung up the phone with a calculating smile on her face. If he was able to lure Dalen to the study room, then keep him there for half an hour, then she would have enough time to wash up and avoid Dalen. Lucia was proud of her plan. When it was almost 7 o'clock in the evening, Lucia started to play on her phone while keeping an eye on Dalen. At 7 o'clock on time, Dalen's phone vibrated. Lucia immediately pushed Dalen, who was watching TV beside her. Dalen, your phone rang. Yes. Dalen continued to watch TV and didn't move. This made Lucia anxious. She asked in puzzlement, Aren't you going to answer the phone? No rush. Dalen's expression did not change as he focused on the TV. How could you not be anxious? What if your family has something important to talk to you about? Lucia urged. Dalen's sharp face turned to the side as he stared at Lucia with his dark pupils. You seem to be in a hurry. I'm doing this for your own good. Do you not see that? Lucia innocently asked. Dalen didn't say anything, but his black eyes gazed at her deeply. Lucia tensed up her nerves, afraid that she would be exposed. Finally, Dalen picked up his phone and answered. Lucia was curled up on the sofa, seemingly indifferent, but in reality she was paying close attention to Dalen's phone call. Dalen stood up and left the room. After the door closed, Lucia put down her phone. Okay, I need to hurry and wash up. I won't give you a chance to be with me. Picking up her pajamas, she went into the bathroom. Standing under the shower, Lucia dared not waste a second. She had calculated the time. Dalen had answered the phone and went to his study. He should be done in about half an hour. Lucia was filled with a sense of accomplishment because of her plan. However, halfway through her bath, the bathroom door opened without warning. Lucia turned around in shock. When she saw Dalen's tall figure enter, she was stunned. He approached Lucia, and with a calm tone he asked, "What are you doing?" Lucia instinctively took 2 steps back in fear. Weren't you on the phone?" "The call's over," Dalen said. "So fast?" Lucia's brain was spinning. Didn't she tell Mark to take half an hour? "Is there a problem?" Lucia quickly turned her face away and tilted her body away from him. "I'm done washing. Let me out." "You're still not clean," Dalen said. "How do you know?" Lucia retorted. "I'll have to check and then you'll know," Dalen teased. Lucia's expression froze for a few seconds. After she understood what he meant, she immediately pushed him with her hand, but nothing changed. "You can check me from over there," she argued. "I can't let you go." Dalen's lips slightly opened, and he said in a deep voice, "My mind is full of you right now." Lucia's body and mind shook. The throbbing spread like ripples. Although she and Dalen had been together countless times, this part still made her a little dazed. "Dalen," she said. "You're amazing," he whispered. Lucia was speechless. Dalen did not give her the chance to speak. Afterwards, Lucia slept until the next afternoon. When she finally opened her eyes, Lucia turned over and immediately cursed. "Ah, Dalen, why do you always do this to me?" After struggling for a while, Lucia finally managed to get out of bed. She silently cursed. What kind of man is Dalen? He was too powerful. Lucia walked out of the room and had to pretend as if nothing had happened when she went downstairs. She didn't want to face the servants like this. Can they tell what happened? Dalen wasn't anywhere to be found, so he must be at the office. Lucia was relieved. She didn't want to see Dalen for at least a day. Lucia walked into the kitchen and saw a maid with her back to her. When she turned around and saw Lucia, she was startled and immediately asked, "Young mistress, you're awake? Are you hungry? The soup has been prepared. We were just waiting for you to wake up." "John isn't here?" Lucia asked. "The assistant manager is busy at the moment," the maid said. "Then I'll eat when he's back," Lucia said. "All right." Lucia turned around and headed for the hall. She curled up on the sofa and hugged a pillow as she lazily watched a horror movie. She yawned widely and her eyes started to water. "Mrs. Patrick, you're awake? I've already made the soup," John said as he walked into the hall after finishing his work. Before Lucia could say anything, the maid came over with the soup. Lucia looked over and told John, "Come watch a horror movie with me." "Young madam, I just remembered. I haven't finished my work, so I must continue." After John said that, he immediately left. Lucia was stunned. Why was he so eager to get away? What was so urgent? Lucia stirred the soup with a spoon and ate a mouthful. It was still as delicious as ever. "Young madam, do you still want more to eat?" the maid asked when she saw Lucia had finished. Lucia thought for a moment and said, "I want to eat some pasta." "Yes, I'll let the kitchen know." The maid took the empty bowl and left. As long as Dalen wasn't here, Lucia could maintain her calm. While Lucia was kneeling beside the coffee table, eating noodles and watching horror movies, Dalen came back. Lucia looked straight ahead, pretending not to see him. He walked towards Lucia and sat down on the sofa. He stared at Lucia's adorable appearance and asked in a low voice, "You just woke up?" "Yes," Lucia muttered. Dalen, of course, could see the displeasure in Lucia's expression, and he knew why she was angry. His black eyes flashed. He pulled Lucia up onto the sofa. "What did you do that for?" Lucia frowned as she rubbed her waist. Dalen picked up her fork and said, "I'll feed them to you." "I can eat by myself. It's not like I don't have hands," Lucia said unhappily. "But you have to lower your head when you take a bite. This way you can just watch TV," Dalen said. Lucia thought about it for a moment and realized it was the truth. When she ate by herself, she missed out on some of the details. "Fine, I'll allow it. But that doesn't mean I forgive you for your actions last night," Lucia said tenderly. "Of course." After Dalen responded, Lucia opened her mouth and ate the noodles. She didn't need to do anything. She could just stare at the TV and open her mouth when she was ready for another bite. She quickly finished the noodles and the bowl was taken away. After finishing the noodles, Lucia immediately left Dalen's side. She felt that Dalen was much more terrifying than a horror movie. "Come here." Dalen frowned. "I don't want to," Lucia argued. Dalen's expression immediately turned cold, and the atmosphere in the hall became cold and oppressive. Lucia could almost feel a cold wind blowing. Lucia bit her lips and weighed the situation over and over again. Finally, she couldn't resist Dalen's alluring voice and sat back down on the couch. Dalen embraced her waist and let her lean into his embrace. His voice was low and deep. "Yes." Lucia couldn't hide her desire, so she ran into the bathroom and took a cold shower. The door opened and she yelled, "Not now!" Lucia's heart beat faster, but the closer he came, the more terrified she was. Lucia wrapped a towel around herself and brushed past Dalen into the bedroom. Dalen followed Lucia, who was standing in the corner. "Lucia, don't just stand there. Come here." Dalen's black eyes were extremely beautiful. "I won't." Lucia wanted to curl up at the base of the wall. I... Lucia looked left and right. There was nowhere to escape, but she climbed up on the windowsill in despair. Dalen froze as he watched her carefully. "If you don't keep your promise tonight, I'll jump," Lucia said angrily. "If you don't keep your promise, I'll jump off the building. Just watch." Lucia's hands clung to the wall, ready to die if Dalen didn't agree. "Okay, fine. Come down. Aren't you cold?" Dalen said. It was indeed a little cold on the windowsill. The room was warm, but there was a breeze outside. While it was blowing through her hair, Dalen's heart softened, but his expression was colder than the sky. "It is cold, but I still have other requests," Lucia said when she saw Dalen approaching her. She was so scared that she immediately shouted, "You're not allowed to come over here. If you come over here, I'll jump." Dalen took a step forward. His sharp black eyes stared coldly at Lucia's stubbornness. "What other requests do you have? Tell me everything," Dalen said. "You promised me 2 days a week," Lucia yelled. "No, I can't do that." Dalen's face was cold and without any room for negotiation. "Why? You are too needy," Lucia wailed. "Why can't you make it work? It's only 2 days." Dalen's black eyes were locked onto Lucia, who had nowhere to run. Was he going too far? Dalen's expression sank as he compromised. "Fine, I can let you take a break." "Really?" Lucia was delighted. Was threatening to jump off a building really this effective? "We can have more rest days to make up for it," Dalen said savagely, obviously upset at Lucia for forcing his hand. Before Lucia could recover from the shock, Dalen said once again, "The time and place are up to me." Lucia bit her lips as she looked at Dalen in fear. Was this worth it? What should she do? Agree or not to agree? "Have you thought it through?" Dalen asked impatiently. Can you reduce it? Lucia tried to bargain. Seeing the change in Dalen's expression, she immediately said, You're in no position to negotiate. Lucia, you'd better agree. Dalen looked at her casually. Why must I agree? Lucia could also refuse and be stubborn. She felt that she had the upper hand right now, so Dalen had to agree with her. Look out to the right, out the window, Dalen said. Why? Are you trying to take this opportunity to pull me down? Lucia was not that stupid. There's a balcony right below you. Even if you jump, it won't hurt. Dalen kindly reminded her, with a glint in his eyes. What? Lucia was stunned. She looked outside the window, and instead of the grass below, it was just an enormous balcony, not too far down from the windowsill. Lucia instantly looked like she was about to collapse. She was not even a meter away from the balcony. She wouldn't even twist her ankle, yet she was still crouching, threatening to jump off the sill. How stupid was she? Just when Lucia was so angry that she wanted to smash her head against the wall, her body lightened. It scared her so much that she instinctively grabbed Dalen's broad shoulders with her two hands. With a flash in his eyes, he placed her on the bed. Then Dalen raised his long arm, and Lucia didn't even have time to react. When she came back to her senses, Dalen was above her. He squeezed Lucia's shoulder with one hand and said in a forceful tone, Don't do that again. What if you catch a cold? Do you blame me? This is all because of you, Lucia argued. Then she remembered something. Dalen, what you said still counts, right? You'll give me 2 days of rest, won't you? Dalen sneered. Didn't you say you don't need to negotiate with me? After thinking about it, I feel that your conditions are quite humane. Thus, I agreed. Lucia silently cursed in her heart. You don't feel wronged? Dalen asked. Not at all. Lucia's heart was aching. Then I take back what I said before, Dalen said. What do you mean? Lucia said, fear filling her heart. I'll go back on my word. Dalen shifted to the side. Lucia panicked and turned to look at Dalen. How can you go back on your word? Why not? You are not at a disadvantage. Why would you go back on your words? Lucia couldn't understand what was going on. You don't know how to negotiate, Dalen teased. Lucia didn't know how to refute Dalen. With great difficulty, she finally managed to persuade Dalen. I'll let you pick anywhere you want, she tried. Dalen pretended to think about it for a while and then said, No. Lucia angrily stood up. Dalen, you're going too far. Are you really going to force me to jump off of a building? This time I made a mistake. Next time I'll stand on the roof of the company and jump just to show you. Then I'll order them to tear down your company. Dalen glanced at her. Lucia widened her eyes. She could not believe that Dalen had such a vicious thought. She knew that Dalen could follow through if he wanted to do it, and no one would stop him. She really wanted to kick him. Lucia, agreeing with me is the most sensible thing to do, Dalen whispered. Lucia felt a burst of energy and immediately jumped, but she lost her balance and fell to the ground. She tried to get up. However, she didn't succeed. Don't move. Dalen's black eyes were shockingly deep as he spoke to Lucia. She was clearly in a disadvantaged position, and Dalen looked like a giant hawk swooping down in a terrifying and dangerous manner. Dalen, we have to write a contract to seal our deal in black and white. You won't go back on your words. Before Lucia could finish her words, Dalen descended. In the morning, Dalen opened his eyes, and when his gaze landed on Lucia, who was sleeping soundly in his arms, the sharp feeling lessened and he relaxed. Lucia pouted slightly. She looked cute when she slept. Dalen kissed her lips and said in a low voice, "I won't disturb you anymore. Sleep well." Then he got up. Just as he sat up, he felt himself being pulled. Lifting up the blanket slightly, he saw Lucia's hand had grabbed onto his. Lucia still closed her eyes and said, "I want to create a contract. I want to create a contract." Dalen's lips curved up into a smile. He pulled his hand away and tucked her in. Lucia simply fell into a deep slumber. When she opened her eyes hours later, her mind was blank for a short moment. It took her nearly a minute to fully wake up. Lucia was really tired when she started to move. She didn't even want to go to the company to work, not to mention going downstairs to eat. Lucia felt that marrying Dalen would definitely cost her years of her life. She was worried about getting up because she couldn't be sure that she wouldn't fall from exhaustion. Lucia wailed her fate into the quilt and was glad the company didn't need her to run it. Otherwise, it would have gone bankrupt a long time ago. She had let down her father. "You're awake?" Dalen asked. Lucia's body trembled. She suddenly raised her head and saw Dalen, who was sitting on the edge of the bed with food in hand. "Dalen, you didn't go to the office?" she asked. "How can my work be more important than you?" Dalen's eyes were locked on her face. Lucia instantly blushed as she lowered her head and muttered, "Am I really that important?" The next second, Lucia sat up angrily. However, due to the excessive movement, she twisted her arm. "Ouch! My arm!" Lucia held onto her wrist with a contorted expression. Dalen reached out his hand and let her lean on his side. Lucia was slightly taken aback, but Dalen remained calm as if he had just picked her up with one arm. "I'll feed you," Dalen offered. "I don't want to eat." Lucia was in a bad mood. "Why not?" "Don't you see that I'm in a bad mood?" Lucia pouted. Dalen's eyes focused on her. "I can tell, but you still have to eat even if you're in a bad mood." Lucia cursed silently in her heart. Dalen didn't say anything. He just picked up a piece of paper from the bedside table and handed it to Lucia. "What is this?" Lucia took it doubtfully. When she saw what was written on it, she felt much better. You're really establishing a written contract with me? I didn't expect you to take it seriously," Lucia said, trying to conceal her pride at having succeeded. "Give it here." Dalen raised his hand. Lucia immediately refused. "No, I will keep it. We'll put it up on the wall." "Up to you." Only then did a smile rise on Lucia's face. The black and white words in her hands made her even happier than money. It made her feel very at ease. Finally. "Dalen, when is the first rest?" Lucia asked deliberately. "Tomorrow." "Then you won't go back on your word, right?" "If you ask me again, I'll tear the contract apart." Dalen had a dangerous look in his eyes. Once Lucia got Dalen's contract, it was as if she had a life-protecting talisman. She hung it on the headboard of their bed. The next day, Dalen kept his promise and didn't touch her, so Lucia had a relaxed and happy evening. Even though she was sitting on the sofa watching horror movies for the whole day, she was still very happy. She hadn't had a good rest since the incident with Dalen. Just the thought of it was extremely miserable. Dalen was expressionless for those 2 days, watching Lucia jump up and down. When Lucia went to look for food, John asked softly, "Young mistress, have you angered Mr. Patrick?" "No, how could I have angered him? It's more like he bullies me," she said defensively. "But he's acting so cold," John said. "Cold? Then let's turn the heat on a little more," Lucia teased as she turned to leave. When she went to the company on Monday, Lucia was simply a young and energetic lady. Walking into the office, Cole asked, Why the smile? Lucia was hoping he would ask her that, so she immediately said joyfully, "Let me tell you, I defeated Dalen." "What do you mean?" Cole asked. "It's a matter of principle." "Be more specific." "It was me who negotiated with Dalen. He agreed to a deal and even wrote a written contract," Lucia said triumphantly. "What kind of contract?" Cole asked. "Why are you asking me? Contracts are contracts. What else can they be? You just need to know that I beat Dalen." Lucia acted as if she was in charge of the mansion. "That seems cruel," Cole said. "Why?" Lucia was shocked that Cole wasn't happy for her. "You're keeping him in suspense. It's cruel." Lucia rolled her eyes and ignored him. "I'll treat you to lunch. Are you hungry?" "Yes." At noon, the two of them walked out to look for food. As they were walking down the street, Lucia heard the sound of skateboarding behind them. Maddie easily slipped past Lucia as she glided beside her. After Maddie glided past Lucia and Cole, she gracefully turned around the skateboard and stopped. Lucia stared blankly at Maddie. Although this was her second time seeing Maddie, Lucia felt like she was watching a horror movie. This was the first time Cole had seen her. He was stunned for a long time by Maddie's ugly face and smile. "You know her?" Cole whispered to Lucia. Lucia cleared her throat. "Let me introduce you. This is Maddie. She's basically a member of Jeff's family. Maddie, this is my best friend Cole," Lucia said as she came back to reality. Cole was stunned. Jeff's family? He turned his head to look at Maddie, then looked at Lucia and asked silently, "You even know her family?" How did Cole not know about Lucia's friendship with this strange person? "Hello. It's my first time meeting you, so it's a bit sudden. I came here to find Lucia for a meal, but Lucia's friend is my friend. Let's eat together," Maddie said generously. Cole immediately said, "Lucia just said that she would treat me to a meal. I'm not sure you're invited." Lucia glanced over at him. He was so bad at making friends. "It's all right. I'll pay for myself." Maddie was all smiles as her eyes squinted into crescent moons. So the three of them found a restaurant to eat at. Just as they were about to enter, Maddie was stopped by a waiter. "You can't go in?" Maddie looked puzzled. "Why can't I go in?" "Beggars are not allowed to enter," the waiter said confidently. Maddie looked down in shame, but then retorted angrily, "Who are you to look down on people with pity? So what if I'm dressed in rags? All people who enter are guests. How can you not let me in? I'm a paying customer." "It would damage our store's image," the waiter explained. Maddie was infuriated. Lucia walked over with a smile and said to the waiter, "She's with us." The waiter immediately changed his attitude. Sorry, please come in." The three of them sat at the table. After ordering their meal, they all felt a little awkward. In the end, Lucia could no longer hold it in. She leaned forward and asked, "Why didn't you buy some new clothes? Does Jeff let you wander in public like this?" "Am I not good at dressing up?" Maddie asked, puzzled. Just as Lucia was struggling to think of what to say, the little girl at the next table started crying. "Mom, there's a ghost." She was pointing at Maddie. The child's mother hurriedly tried to coax the child, explaining that it was not a ghost. Finally, the child stopped. "Did you see that?" Lucia asked. "I really don't know what you're talking about. I just like my outfit," Maddie said indifferently. Cole was curious. "How old are you?" 19, Maddie said. "Then you should be in college right now, right?" Cole was surprised. "I tried, but I didn't like it," Maddie couldn't stand studying. Lucia said, "You can go to my school. The education there is pretty good." As she was speaking, she noticed Cole turn his head and look straight at her. "Why are you looking at me?" Cole wanted to say, "Are you sure you're talking about the same school?" "What's wrong?" Lucia asked again. "Our school has its fair share of scandals. Everyone's always messing up relationships between men and women. There's also a woman who is pregnant in almost every dorm room. You think that's good?" Cole asked. "Who's pregnant in our old dorm?" Lucia was shocked. "Jennifer," Cole answered. "Who's the father?" Cole sighed. "He ran away." "Oh, I guess you're right. I mean, just look at me and who I ended up marrying," Lucia muttered harshly. Maddie sat there thinking, why were the two of them talking so enthusiastically, but acting as if it was none of her business? However, Maddie started to think, if she were to study there, then she could live in the dorm rooms. After Maddie returned to Jeff's mansion, she laid on the sofa in the living room and watched television, but she wasn't in the mood for anything. When she saw Jeff come back into the hall, Maddie threw the remote control to the side, stood up, and ran towards him. "Jeff, you're back!" Jeff's face changed when he saw Maddie. "Didn't I give you money to buy clothes? Why are you still dressed like this?" "I used the money to buy food for someone else to eat." "What kind of meal would cost that much money?" Jeff's expression was extremely ugly. "I didn't use it all. As for the rest, I'll save for later." Maddie spoke very seriously. "Who did you eat with?" Maddie shrugged. "Lucia." The coldness in Jeff's eyes almost covered the entire hall. "You used the money I gave you to buy her a meal?" Seeing how angry Jeff was, Maddie took a step back and said innocently, "I wanted to repay her for her kindness." "It would have been more useful if you had reported to someone that they drugged me, or were you trying to take advantage of me?" Jeff's face turned cold. Maddie braced herself and said, "No, I'm repaying her for keeping me by your side." If she didn't say it, she wouldn't be taking advantage of the situation. Jeff looked at her coldly. Maddie stood there obediently without moving, as if she was innocent. No one liked the feeling of being schemed against. Jeff suppressed his anger and reached out his hand. "Give me the card." "No, you gave it to me. How can you go back on your word?" Maddie immediately hid behind the sofa, ready to escape at any moment. Jeff's expression turned ugly. Maddie continued, "Jeff, actually, I have something to tell you. I want to study at the city university." "Yeah, and who allowed it?" Jeff's face was cold. "Jeff, just promise me. I'm sure I can find the money, and I don't need your other living expenses, okay?" Finally, Jeff let her borrow some money. It was more than Maddie had ever seen, but why did it feel like he was only giving her a small amount of money? "Do you want to study and stay here forever?" Jeff asked Maddie with a cold smile. Maddie stared at him in shock. "How did you know?" "You can't fool me with your little beggar tricks," Jeff taunted. So what if she was a beggar? Maddie thought to herself. Agatha had taught her a lot of things, like how to not starve to death in the streets. Jeff was too disinterested to see her unconvinced look. He turned around and sat down on the sofa. His eyes were cold as he said, "If you want to go to school, you can." "Why should I? I thought you just said it was a scheme," Maddie said, puzzled. Jeff's gaze was as cold as an icehouse. He suspected that her mother Stacy had taught her to behave like this. This rebellious girl made him want to throw her out. "Why aren't you saying anything?" Maddie asked cautiously when she saw the terrifying expression on Jeff's face. If you were my child, I would punish you. Jeff's voice was threatening. Just because of how I dress? You think that I'm not a good person? Jeff, are you trying to judge me by my appearance? You don't even know me, Maddie retorted from behind the sofa. Then you can't go to school. Jeff stood up and left. There was no room for negotiation. Maddie became anxious in her heart. If she didn't do something productive, she would be sent away soon. Unease flashed in Maddie's eyes. She sprang into action and caught up to Jeff, blocking his path. Jeff, I'll change my clothes. I'll go and buy some new clothes to wear. I won't be wearing these old clothes anymore, okay? She was clearly in a state of panic and also a bit helpless. Jeff didn't say a word as he watched her, nor did he make a move. Jeff, can you just be patient? I won't be able to get used to it very quickly. You're not used to bathing and changing clothes regularly, Jeff taunted. Maddie looked pitifully at him with tears in her eyes. The crystal clear mist made her eyes even brighter. Jeff, I'm begging you. Fine, it's a deal. Jeff rolled his eyes. Maddie's eyes lit up. Jeff, you promise me? One more word and you won't need to go to school, Jeff growled. I'll go now. Maddie ran outside happily. Jeff immediately got annoyed. He had actually compromised again. This was the second time. Who had he compromised with before? It was always his words that couldn't be disobeyed. Since when did he let a woman dictate his decisions? This won't happen a third time. Maddie shouldn't get her hopes up. Maddie went to a women's clothing store to buy clothes, but she felt that the shopping guide style wasn't very good. She had to remind herself, though, that she must dress up like this. Otherwise, Jeff would go back on his word and not let her go to school. This kind of an opportunity was once in a lifetime for Maddie. The more Maddie thought about it, the more she felt that it was perfect. She would live in the dorms and could visit her mother whenever she wanted. After changing into her new clothes and shoes, she looked at herself in the mirror and felt that it wasn't actually that bad. When she returned to the mansion, she immediately looked for Jeff. Jeff, I bought new clothes. When Maddie stood at the foot of the stairs preparing to head upstairs, she discovered that Jeff was looking down from over the railing. Standing below, Maddie raised her head and said, Jeff, I've changed my clothes. When can I go to school now? Jeff's sharp gaze swept across Maddie's clothes. She was wearing a pair of tailored jeans and flat leather shoes, revealing her ankles. The skin around her ankles was very white and beautiful. She wore a warm jacket with the sleeves slightly long. Half of her hands were hidden inside, revealing just her slender fingers. There was a world of difference between this outfit and her previous tattered appearance. Jeff, you won't go back on your word, right? We agreed. When am I going to school? Maddie urged. Tomorrow. Jeff's eyes were cold. So fast? Jeff turned around and left without a word. Maddie muttered, I've already changed my clothes. Why is he still unhappy? How strange. The next morning, Maddie was sleeping soundly under the covers. However, her face could not be considered cute or enchanting. At first glance, it looked ugly. Upon closer inspection, it was even more horrifying. Jeff raised his wrist and looked at the time, then walked to the edge of the bed with a cold expression. Maddie woke up from her sleep. What's going on? When she realized someone else was in the room, she immediately sat up from the bed and looked at Jeff, who was beside the bed. Her mind was still in a drowsy state. Jeff, why are you in my room? What time is it? You don't need to go to school? Jeff demanded. When Maddie looked at the bedside table, she exclaimed, it's already 7 o'clock. Sorry, my biological clock hasn't adjusted yet. I'll get up now. Wait for me. I'll be ready soon. With that, she jumped out of the bed and went into the washroom. After breakfast, Maddie got into the car. The moment she sat down, she saw Jeff following her. The car left the mansion. "Jeff, you're taking me to school?" Maddie was very surprised. "Your school is on the way to where I'm going." Jeff looked out of the window expressionlessly. Maddie smiled and said, "Even if it's along the way, I'm happy, because no one used to take me to school when I was young, not even if it was along the way. Jeff, thank you." "Don't be happy too early. If I find out you are causing trouble at school, I'll take you out of class immediately. Do you hear me?" Jeff looked at her coldly. "Don't worry, I won't cause trouble," Maddie promised, with a smile on her face. Jeff glanced at her coldly and then looked away. Maddie didn't know how Jeff did it. Perhaps it seemed like she didn't know much about Jeff. After introducing herself to her classmates in class, Maddie sat in the last empty seat. Then Maddie heard whispers. "Isn't this woman too ugly?" "Exactly. How did someone this ugly get assigned to our class?" "I don't even have the mood to go to class after seeing her. I've never seen such an ugly girl before." Maddie acted as if she hadn't heard their discussion as she flipped through her new school books calmly. In any case, she had heard enough of these kinds of insults in her previous school. She had long since mastered the skill of ignoring negative comments. Furthermore, she had also promised Jeff that she wouldn't cause trouble, so she definitely wouldn't react. In another part of town, Agatha was leaning on the side of the road, basking in the sun. In front of her was a broken bowl, and sometimes a passerby would throw $1 or a few coins in. Suddenly, someone threw $100 bill into the bowl. Agatha looked up in astonishment to see Maddie, who was wearing her new, tasteful clothes. Agatha looked at Maddie and said, "You look pretty good this way. Even so, you can't insult me like this, okay?" "How did I insult you?" Maddie asked, confused. "If you just give me $100, what sense of accomplishment would I have?" Agatha said. "It's like it fell from the sky." Agatha rolled her eyes and changed the subject. "So, who was that man who pulled you away? He seemed rude, but is he the one who's giving you all this money?" Agatha asked. "It's complicated. My mom used to live with his family," Maddie explained. "He looks like he's a bad guy. You weren't bullied, were you? If someone dares to bully you, just tell me," Agatha said. Maddie smiled at her. Agatha knew the look of hesitation in Maddie's eyes and said, "I just want you to talk to me." "Aren't you curious as to why someone like me would be living on the street?" Seeing that Agatha did not ask, Maddie took the initiative to ask. "What's so strange about that? I have a doctorate and I'm still out begging." Agatha looked at the horde of cars in the distance with an indifferent expression. Agatha had told Maddie about her degree before, but Maddie naturally did not take it seriously and just laughed it off. "How about I get Jeff to arrange a job for you?" Maddie asked. "Do you think this isn't a job? I like to be a beggar. This is my life. Not everyone can be a beggar, you know. First, they had to give up their pride. Second, they had to persevere in their faith. Third, they had to be logical. You must not underestimate the work of beggars," Agatha explained. "I know all that. You told me about it my first night on the street, and I've always remembered it," Maddie said in frustration. However, she still felt that it was better not to be a beggar. But even so, Maddie was definitely supportive of Agatha, because everyone's thoughts and hobbies are different. "I have to go back. Otherwise, Jeff will be unhappy." Maddie stood up. "You see, it's better to be a beggar. How much freedom do you have now? You don't have that kind of luck." Agatha looked at Maddie pitifully and said. Maddie smiled and said, "Then I'll come see you next time." That night, Maddie was sitting at the desk in her room, doing her homework. She had been trying to decipher it for a long time, but she had yet to do so. She hated math. It could kill all of her brain cells. Maddie stood up, took off her sweater, and put on the t-shirt she had bought. It wouldn't be cold at night in the mansion like this anyway. She thought that she would be able to clear her head after changing into a cooler set of clothes. It was useless, though. She couldn't do it, even if she pointed a gun at her head. Maddie bit her pen and thought for a while, wondering if Jeff was good at math. Finally, she took the math problem and went to find Jeff. Maddie knocked on his door. Jeff, are you there? I have something to ask you about. Jeff? Why didn't he answer her? Or was she speaking too soft for him to hear? Maddie pressed her ear to the door, trying to hear what was going on inside. She didn't notice that a person came up behind her and was looking at her coldly without a sound. Do you hear anything? I don't hear anything. After Maddie finished her sentence, she immediately felt that something was wrong. She turned around in shock and looked at Jeff, who stood behind her. Immediately, she felt guilty. Jeff, why are you standing behind me and not making a sound? What is it? Jeff's face did not look good. I have a math problem that I can't solve. Jeff, can you teach me? Maddie pouted. Go back to your room and wait, Jeff said coldly. All right, then I'll go back to my room and wait for you. Maddie turned around and ran back to her room. After returning to her room, she sat down at her desk and waited. Not long after, Jeff walked in. Maddie, who was leaning against the back of the chair, immediately straightened up. When Jeff walked over, he pushed the textbook aside and showed her how to solve the problem. After he finished, Maddie kept asking questions, so Jeff pulled a chair over and sat down. Jeff felt that once he ran out of patience, it would be time to send Maddie away. Isn't that simple? Just use the formula, Jeff said, glancing at the question. I've tried, but I still can't solve it. Maddie was shocked. Jeff was brilliant at math. Calculate the beginning section first before using it, Jeff explained, rubbing his eyes. Nope. Maddie had an innocent look in her eyes. Jeff didn't say a word. He just picked up the pen and showed it to her on the paper. Maddie leaned her head forward and looked at Jeff's vigorous and forceful writing on the white paper. It looked very sexy. Do you understand? Jeff put down his pen and asked. Understood. Maddie picked up the pen and was about to copy it. Jeff directly flipped over the paper. Maddie was stunned. When she met Jeff's cold eyes, she lowered her head and did it from memory. Jeff had been staring at her doing homework, but then he became distracted by Maddie's exposed skin and her creamy, delicate arms. Maddie wore short-sleeved clothes, and her skin was abnormally white. She was tender to the point that she seemed to possess a kind of strength. It seemed contradictory. Looking at Maddie's face again, Jeff snapped out of his distraction. Her face and body were extremely mismatched. It was obvious that her taste was too poor, and that face made Jeff gag. Because Jeff was a germaphobe, allowing Maddie to stay with him showed how much endurance he had. Jeff, I don't know how to answer the next question either, Maddie said. Pick the easiest ones first, Jeff groaned. Maddie didn't move. You don't understand what I'm saying? He asked. I don't know how to do any of them. Jeff's face turned dark. Were you sleeping during class? I didn't sleep. It's just that the teaching method is so different, so I don't understand it. Maddie felt herself begin to cry, but Jeff had no mercy. This was your plan. You have to pay the price, Jeff said. Was this a punishment? Maddie thought, as Jeff forced her to do her math problems by herself. Maddie lowered her head and racked her brains as she scratched answers on the paper. After she was done, she showed it to Jeff. Jeff, is this right? When Maddie pushed her notebook toward him, Jeff had a look of disbelief on his face. Maddie noticed the change in Jeff's expression and asked in puzzlement, Jeff, what's wrong with you? Jeff stared at Maddie with his sharp and dark eyes. Jeff, is it too wrong? Maddie thought that Jeff was staring at a notebook and seeing her wrong answers. Jeff! Maddie was about to open her mouth and say something when she met Jeff's cold and gloomy eyes. She was so frightened that she shut her mouth. Jeff didn't say anything. With a stern expression, he stood up and left. Maddie was completely dumbfounded. She had no idea what was going on. Why did Jeff suddenly have such an expression? She couldn't understand it. His expression was tense, as if he was enduring something. Maddie looked at the math problem she had just done and thought, did I make Jeff angry? Was it wrong? Jeff returned to his room and went into the bathroom. He turned on the shower and stood under it. Cold water poured over his body. Other than that time when he was drugged by Dalen, Jeff had never had such a strong reaction. Because of Maddie? But she had such an ugly face. Jeff's fingers impatiently raked through his thick black hair. Across town, Lucia and Cole were walking around the supermarket. The two of them mostly stayed together, but because of their different tastes, Lucia had gone elsewhere to find her favorite flavor of yogurt. Just as she reached out to pick up the yogurt, she saw Jeff menacingly walking towards her with a cold face. Lucia was so shocked that she threw away the yogurt in her hand and ran. But how could she outrun a wolf in the forest? Jeff grabbed onto Lucia's shoulder from behind, and Lucia was about to shout out, but she was stopped by his hand over her mouth. No one came to her rescue. Jeff pushed her to the corner and pressed her against the wall of the supermarket. It was clear that Jeff came with ill intentions. You better not yell at me, or else I will make you regret it for the rest of your life. Lucia looked at the lunatic in terror. After Jeff removed his hand from her mouth, Lucia immediately became angry. What are you trying to do now? Are you going to drug me? Let me tell you, you can't do that. Dalen would never let you rest. Don't worry, I'm not here to drug you, Jeff said. Then what are you going to do? Lucia was terrified. With a shocked expression, she asked, Don't tell me you have an even more cruel idea. Jeff had the urge to strangle her. If you want, I can do it now. I don't want that. Let me go. I know you won't use cruel means against me, Lucia said. Jeff's attention was focused on Lucia's face. Her skin was white and tender, without any blemishes. But Jeff frowned as if Lucia was missing something. Lucia's entire body was stuck against the wall. She thought, why does it feel so creepy when Jeff is staring at me? What is Jeff doing? It didn't look like he was doing anything bad to her, but more like he was studying her skin. Jeff couldn't be trying to kill her, right? Just when Lucia was about to lose her mind and hope that Cole would discover that she had disappeared, the pressure on her shoulders lessened. Jeff withdrew his heavy body. With a dark expression, he turned around and left. When Cole found Lucia, he saw that she was leaning against the wall, looking extremely weird. It was as if she was practicing some strange martial arts. What are you doing? Cole walked over and looked Lucia up and down with a frown. Lucia relaxed her body and said helplessly, Jeff is here. What? Where is he? Cole looked around. He's gone again. Lucia wiped her face with her hand, as if there was something dirty on it. Damn Jeff. Every time he appears, nothing good happens. What did he ask you for? Cole asked. How should I know what he wants? He was being so weird. Lucia shuddered. Weird? Are you sure he's still not chasing after you? Cole looked at her protectively. It can't be, Lucia muttered. Why else would he be looking for you? Lucia turned around and saw a mirror on the shelf. Her small pink face was reflected back at her. Lucia rubbed her lower jaw and said, No wonder. Cole was speechless and dragged Lucia back to the company. In the office, the two of them arranged the food they bought. Lucia went to rest in her lounge, but when she came out, she didn't see Cole. Where did he hide his snacks? Is he afraid that I'll steal them? Lucia looked around the office. If I find one, I'll eat it. Then she went around to Cole's desk and rummaged through his drawers. When she opened the cabinet at the side, she did not see any snacks, but there were company documents. And there was something else there. What? Lucia took it out and looked at it, her eyes wide open. It was a pregnancy test. Wasn't this the same one he bought at the pharmacy for her? Cole still had it? Lucia thought to herself. If she had known earlier, she would have taken the test before she bought the drug for early pregnancy. As Lucia was studying the box, she heard the sound of someone entering. Lucia thought it was Cole, so she continued to stare at the manual on the box and said, Cole, I didn't expect that the pregnancy test that you insisted on buying me was still there, and I should have bought it to test for myself. It scared me so much that I didn't feel at ease for a few days. After Lucia finished her sentence, she sensed that something was wrong. The smile froze on her face. When she turned around to look, she saw a tall and straight black figure standing silently not far away. His sharp black eyes stared at her. Dalen, why are you here? Lucia laughed dryly. The closer Dalen got, the stronger the tension in the air was. Lucia took a small step back. At the same time, Dalen snatched away the pregnancy test without any warning. Explain what you just said. Dalen's face was as dark as the clouds, as if a storm was about to break. Lucia was immediately terrified. Standing there with her head lowered, she nervously played with her fingers. Well, it all happened when I got up in the morning to throw up. And for a few days, my stomach didn't feel well, and I thought it might have been from food poisoning. So Cole and I went to the drugstore to buy medicine. I described my symptoms to the pharmacist at the drugstore, who said I might be pregnant and suggested buying an early pregnancy test. So I bought it, but I didn't dare to use it. I didn't expect that Cole would keep it here all this time. Lucia carefully looked at Dalen's cold face. So you're saying that you didn't want to see a doctor when you were sick and didn't want to eat because you were afraid that I would find out that you were pregnant? Dalen asked. Well, yes. Which shop? I'll go smash it. Dalen felt raging anger. Lucia was shocked and immediately comforted him. You can't blame them. It was because my period didn't come for 2 months and I had nausea. That made the pharmacist suspicious. That's when I still thought that me and Axel... Dalen's black eyes narrowed, becoming even colder as he cut her off. What did you call him just now? Lucia was so scared that every nerve in her body tensed up. I forgot. I didn't mean to say his name, Lucia said. Calling him Axel in front of me. It's very intimate, isn't it? Dalen's black eyes were filled with a frightening danger as he approached Lucia. No, Dalen, you have to be calm. I just said it casually, and this is the only time I've messed up. To be honest, I didn't think it through. Please don't take it seriously. Lucia stopped in her tracks because the desk behind her was blocking her path. She couldn't retreat any further. And in front of her was Dalen, standing like an impenetrable wall. Then should I remind you what you should say and what you shouldn't say? Dalen said suggestively. What do you want to do now? This is the office? Lucia's heart shuddered. Lucia, you seem to have forgotten about the written contract, Dalen teased. Lucia's mind went blank as she thought of the contract she wanted Dalen to write. Dalen, are you serious? Lucia asked in disbelief. Of course. What if I refuse? Refusal is useless. Lucia's heart raced. Go back to your desk, Dalen ordered. Lucia started to panic, and she turned pale. Are you kidding me? This is the office. Dalen's voice was deep and hoarse. Lucia kept trying. Cole will be back soon. Spencer won't let anyone come in, Dalen promised. But... Lucia tried to think of other excuses, but her resolve was wearing thin. Are you sure you want to refuse? Then the contract would be broken. Lucia froze, and she pouted and looked pitifully at Dalen. Dalen, spare me. I promise I won't dare to do it again. The more Dalen saw how cute she was, the more he wanted her. However, his sharp eyes swept over to the side. He picked up the pregnancy test from the desk. Go take the test, he said. Huh? Lucia was a little taken aback by his words. Since you bought it, you should use it. Lucia understood what Dalen meant. She held the pregnancy test in her hands and asked with uncertainty, Do you really want me to take the test? It's only been a month, right? These things don't happen that fast. Take it. I have a good feeling, Dalen said with certainty. How could you know? You wouldn't be able to see the differences with your naked eye. In Lucia's heart, she was half believing and half doubting. Could she really be pregnant? Just trust me, Dalen said. Lucia froze for a moment before her face turned red. What if she wasn't pregnant? If I'm not... Before she finished, Dalen's gaze turned cold, so Lucia immediately stopped talking. If you continue bargaining with me, do you think I'll let you come back to the company? Dalen threatened. Lucia lowered her head and jumped down from the desk, taking the test with her into the bathroom in the lounge. Looking in the mirror, Lucia felt even more ashamed. Her face was bright red. Lucia looked at the pregnancy test in her hands, and then at her flat belly. Could there be a baby in her stomach? She didn't feel a thing. Lucia opened the box and sat on the toilet. Suddenly, the door opened. Lucia looked up in shock. When she saw Dalen, her face turned red again. What are you doing? Do you know how to use it? He asked. Of course I know how to use it. Get out of here. Do you still want me to test it for you? Lucia was anxious to chase him away. Dalen glanced at her suspiciously. However, he still closed the door and waited in the lounge. Lucia sat looking at the instructions on the box. Urinate? How can that be right? Lucia looked at different places on the box. She stood up again, trying to find a more convenient position. However, when she turned around, the pregnancy test stick in her hand fell into the toilet bowl. Lucia was shocked as she looked at the pregnancy test in the toilet bowl. Crap! Would it still work after falling into the water? Lucia wanted to reach into the toilet bowl to pick up the pregnancy test stick, but she felt disgusted and couldn't reach out her hand. What could she do? If Dalen knew, would he agree with what she was going to do next? Lucia didn't want to, but there was no other choice. Looking at the calm pregnancy test stick in the water, Lucia closed her eyes and clenched her teeth, dipping her hand into the water. Once out, she rinsed her hand under the tap in scalding hot water with lots of soap. After washing up, she wiped everything clean. She placed it on top of the stone countertop, steadied her nerves, and walked out of the bathroom as if nothing had happened. Dalen looked at her with his deep black eyes. Lucia immediately said, "No, you guessed wrong." "No?" Dalen frowned. "I'm not pregnant. Dalen, you must have been wrong." Lucia put on a smile. "Bring it here," he demanded. "What I said was true. If you want proof, then I'll show it to you." Lucia turned around and went into the bathroom. Then she gave the test to Dalen. Dalen accepted it expressionlessly. "Bring me the box." Lucia had no choice but to fetch the box for him. After Dalen finished looking at the pregnancy test stick, he looked at the instructions on the box. Then he looked at Lucia sharply. "How did you use it?" "Exactly like how I said." Lucia's finger pointed at the top of the pregnancy test, but nothing could be hidden from Dalen's astuteness. "If you don't read properly, your lies will be full of holes." Dalen's eyes darkened. "What do you mean? Let me tell you, Dalen, I wasn't good at studying, but you can't say that I'm stupid," Lucia retorted with anger. "It shows that the 2 red bars are pregnant. 1 is not pregnant, and none of them are invalid." Dalen was intimidating. Lucia looked at the box and asked with a hint of uncertainty, "Really? That's how it works?" Dalen gave the box to her to let her see it for herself. After Lucia read the instructions carefully, she realized that Dalen was right. She hadn't even looked at the instructions before the pregnancy test stick fell into the toilet. "Do you understand? So tell me what really happened." Dalen's black eyes were calm and emitted a mysterious light. "Look, I understand." Lucia pursed her lips. "I was just about to test when I accidentally dropped the stick into the toilet. I didn't do it on purpose. I was afraid that you would scold me, so I didn't tell you the truth." Dalen's face turned dark, but Lucia tried to smile and said, "Dalen, I don't want to lie to you. Besides, you always know when I'm lying anyways." There was a hint of flattery in her words. Seeing her innocent smile, Dalen's coldness disappeared, and he pulled her close. Lucia bit her lips and stared at Dalen. "So I always see through your lies. Or maybe I just assume you never listen to or read instructions," Dalen teased. Lucia scoffed at the insult. "I refuse to accept this. This is the first time I've done this. How would I know how to do it?" Lucia said what she thought was reasonable. Anyways, she felt that Dalen was too much of a bully. Dalen heard how confident she sounded, and her reasoning was, admittedly, very pleasant to listen to. Even her anger had a spirited appearance. His black eyebrows slightly raised, and his dark pupils looked at her in a serene manner. "What if I asked you to come back home?" "I won't." Lucia let go of his suit jacket and was displeased. She started thinking, where is the best place to go, and caught herself. After that, Lucia grabbed Dalen's hand and forcefully bit down, glaring at Dalen, showing a vicious expression. However, Dalen didn't show any expression of pain. He slowly moved his hand back, but Lucia still didn't let him go. Dalen stroked her hair with his other hand, and Lucia's heart sped up in shock. Then she looked at Dalen as he retracted his hand. Lucia immediately took 2 steps back. "Satisfied?" Dalen asked. "It's settled." Lucia's eyes twinkled. "Let's go then." "Where to?" "The hospital." Lucia submitted to being taken to the hospital for an examination. When they were in the car, Lucia said, "Why don't we just go to the pharmacy and buy another pregnancy test stick? We don't need to go to the hospital, do we?" Lucia asked. The hospital made her panic. "I'll help you with another pregnancy test, or you can go to the hospital. I prefer the latter," but we can go to the drugstore right now if you like, Dalen said indifferently as he lazily sat in his seat. Lucia's forehead creased as she tried to find a loophole. Eventually, she gave in. I've thought it through. It's safer to go to the hospital. Dalen had a wide smile on his face. At the hospital, Lucia and Dalen sat in the VIP room, waiting for the doctor to deliver the report. Lucia took note that Dalen got preference in every aspect of his life. With power and influence, anyone would willingly make an exception for him. They didn't even need to wait for an available doctor at the hospital. She didn't even need to run around. She just needed to be comfortable. Of course, none of this was because of Lucia. It was Dalen who was the king. But Lucia couldn't rule out the possibility of her taking advantage of the situation to intimidate the king, because she was still the king's family, so she should fully enjoy this privilege. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door, and Spencer and the doctor came in with the test results. Lucia's heart tensed up as she looked at the doctor. When Dalen read the test results silently, Lucia could not understand the expression on his face. Dalen's mood was always hard to guess. Mr. Patrick, congratulations. Your wife is over 1 month pregnant, the doctor said. Lucia was stunned. Was she really pregnant? Lucia looked at Dalen with a shocked expression. When she saw Dalen's eyes, Lucia's face turned red. He really did get it right. Lucia was embarrassed and annoyed. She stood up and looked at the ultrasound photos in Dalen's hand. She asked the doctor, Is this black dot a child? Yes, he answered. It's so small. Lucia had a different feeling in her heart. She was even a little nervous. I've heard that having a child is especially painful, isn't it? You can choose to have a cesarean section, which is sometimes the less painful option, the doctor said. Doesn't it hurt? Lucia asked. Either way will hurt, but we will do everything we can to manage the pain. The doctor felt that although it was Lucia's question, with Dalen hovering nearby, he had to think carefully before answering. Especially when he said his last sentence, he said it to Dalen. Mr. Patrick, you'll need to let your wife rest and you won't be able to be intimate for a while, in order to prevent the fetus from becoming unstable. Lucia looked at the cold-faced Dalen with a blush, thinking that Dalen must be on the verge of collapse right now. Serves him right. When Dalen looked over, Lucia immediately retracted the pride in her heart. Dalen could see through her. In the car, Lucia thought Dalen would be upset. She didn't expect Dalen to hug her the moment the car drove away. Lucia struggled slightly for a moment, and then accepted the embrace. Lucia didn't say anything, but her face looked as if she was smeared with rouge. What kind of life would this child have? I'm not in a good mood, Lucia muttered. What's the difference? Tell me about it. Dalen listened attentively. It could be because, when you're used to something and you lose it. For example, if you give me soup every day and then suddenly stop giving it to me, I will definitely miss it very much. Lucia racked her brains to find an excuse for herself. There was a smirk on Dalen's face. Between me and soup, which one makes you comfortable after eating? Dalen asked, with his mischievous eyes. Lucia was stunned, and her face turned completely red after realizing what he had said. She then said angrily, How can you ask that? Why? Is it not easy to compare? Tell me your answer, Dalen said. Dalen, this is bullying. Lucia pouted. Will you tell me? Lucia was upset, but she immediately thought of something and a crafty look flashed across her eyes. So what if I don't tell you? You can't touch me now because I have your child in my womb. She said these words very smugly. But not only was Dalen not threatened, he even smiled, which made her feel scared. Lucia felt helpless. She knew that it was better not to laugh when Dalen smiled. It was too scary. It always made her feel like something dangerous was going to happen. Lucia, do you remember what we did during the first 3 months? Dalen asked. Lucia's mind suddenly recalled everything that happened to her during that period of time. It was simply unbearable to think back on. We can make it work. Dalen went on tyrannically. Fine, if I answer your question, will you stop being so shameless? Lucia asked, tugging at his sleeves. That will depend on whether you can satisfy me. Dalen's sharp eyes locked onto her, leaving her with no way out. Lucia braced herself and turned her gaze to the side. I'm not sure I can, Lucia whispered. You know how I feel. You know I love you. That should be enough, right? Lucia's face was red with anger. It's not the same, Dalen said. What's different? What you say will make me happy, but it won't satisfy me, Dalen teased. Lucia gritted her teeth. She knew perfectly well what Dalen was about to start. Didn't you enjoy it? He asked as he came closer to her. Lucia really wanted to slap Dalen out of the car. Why aren't you speaking? Dalen urged. Yes, I'm extremely happy, Lucia replied sarcastically. Dalen had no limit. Finally, Lucia blushed, and her anger died down. Dalen sat up straight and used his hands to steady Lucia's shoulders. Lucia's breath caught in her throat. I'm very satisfied. Dalen was very happy. Lucia was really afraid that Dalen wouldn't care about anything anymore. Lucia was very reserved now that she was pregnant. Dalen didn't allow her to go to work, so she was staying in the mansion every day. Dalen wouldn't leave the mansion either if he had the ability to do so, but he had business to take care of. It was good that the mansion was big, because there was a lot of space, so Lucia didn't feel too stuffy. The problem was, there was nothing she could do while she was pregnant with a child. She could only obediently stay in the mansion and not go anywhere. When Linda first heard that Lucia was pregnant, she was shocked. What did you say? Lucia is pregnant? Linda, who had been sitting on the sofa, stood up in shock when she heard her maid's words. Are you sure? Yes, Lucia is recuperating in the mansion every day. I'm not wrong. Ma'am, what should we do now? We already gave her that medicine, the maid asked worriedly. How old is the baby? Linda asked. A month. Linda could not stand any longer and staggered back onto the sofa. Madame, please take note of your health. Her maid immediately supported her. How could she get pregnant so quickly? It's only been a month since Dalen said he was going to get Lucia pregnant, Linda asked in disbelief. If Lucia had taken that medicine when she was already pregnant, the child would have been born with a deformity. I should have known. She is young and it is normal for her to have children. How many times have you given her medicine? Linda asked. Every day, the maid whispered. This whole week? Yes. Linda felt pain in her head. Madame, the child cannot be allowed to be born, the maid said. Do you even need to say this? If the child is growing up in her belly, and it's not healthy. Linda was upset and frightened. Or do you want Mr. Patrick to make the call to terminate the pregnancy? The maid asked. How would Dalen be willing? This is his first child, my first grandson. Normally, Lucia would be doted on like a precious treasure, but now that she's pregnant, does Dalen still love her? Linda asked, hoping that perhaps Dalen had changed his mind. No, after I heard that the young mistress was pregnant, I heard that Mr. Patrick has cherished her greatly and won't allow her to go out. The servant said that the young mistress is carried downstairs by him every morning for breakfast, so it can be seen how much he cares about that unborn child. The maid was also afraid now because she was a participant. "Tell me, is it possible that the child would be fine?" Linda asked with hope. But the maid was in a difficult situation. "It's been a whole week." Linda closed her eyes in distress. Should she tell Dalen the truth? It was difficult for her to face it, and she was even a little panicked. Would Dalen hate her? "Madame, why don't you go and have a conversation with Lucia? Make her so stressed that she might miscarry? This way, Mr. Patrick won't blame you. Moreover, this matter itself is not your fault. Who told Lucia to be so unscrupulous? Otherwise, you wouldn't have come up with such a plan to drug her." Is that feasible?" Linda asked hopefully in her heart. "You have to try. Otherwise, if the fetus is deformed, the consequences will be even more severe. Especially knowing your son, he would definitely find out. And when that happens, moreover, the fetus is only a month old, so even if it miscarries, it won't cause harm to the mistress. This is the only way to cover everything up." Indeed, Linda didn't like Lucia and felt that she didn't have any good qualities, but she hesitated to do so. She said, "Take the pills and ask the doctor. If the doctor says there's a chance, even a slim chance, that the child will be okay, we will just wait it out. I believe that the children of my family are strong." Although the maid felt that there was not even a 1 in 100 chance of success, she still agreed. "Okay, I'll go right now." At the mansion, Dalen was in the study, while Lucia was sitting on the sofa watching TV. After watching for a while, she called Cole. "What are you busy with?" "What do you mean busy? I'm working, unlike you," Cole said in an unhappy tone. Lucia chuckled dryly. She hadn't told Cole yet that she was pregnant because she felt a little embarrassed. "What are you laughing about?" "Forget it. Hurry up and come to the company and chat with me. Otherwise, if you stay at home for too long, you'll be even more stupid," Cole said teasingly. "Are you saying that I'm dumb? Birds of a feather flock together, you know. We are the same kind of trash." "Wait a minute. I've never heard that before." Cole tried to recall the idiom in her head. "You're joking. It's a really common saying," Lucia teased. Cole didn't want to argue with her, so he stayed quiet. Lucia took a deep breath. "There's something I want to tell you." Lucia drew circles on the sofa with her other hand, looking embarrassed. "What is it?" Cole asked. "Are you sitting down?" "Why?" Cole started feeling worried about what Lucia might say. "I'm afraid I'll surprise you and make you faint." Cole leaned against the desk helplessly. "I'm leaning against the desk. Go ahead." "I'm pregnant," Lucia said shyly. "Pregnant?" Cole was stunned. "That's right." Cole straightened up and said, "Firstly, I congratulate you on your promotion to mother. Secondly, I am pleasantly surprised. Is this why you don't come to work anymore?" "That's right. I can't leave the mansion right now, so I'll have to wait for the child to stabilize before I can leave." "How long will that take?" Cole asked. 2 more months, I think," Lucia replied. "With your character, can you bear staying in the mansion every day?" "I can't take it anymore, so come and see me when you have time," Lucia begged. "Got it. I've been busy with the company recently, but I'll come see you after I'm done."